Turn off every light around you right now, just for a second, in your head. Feel that instinctive tightening in your chest? That's not irrational. That's not superstition. That's several 100,000 years of your ancestors being absolutely right to be terrified. Here's what's coming. The biological glitch in human eyes that turned nighttime into a death sentence. The predator that hunts almost exclusively after dark and is devastatingly good at it. The cave paintings deliberately hidden in total blackness that reveal something unsettling about what darkness meant to ancient minds. And the surprising discovery that this fear isn't something you're born with at all. Let's start with the eyes that failed us. Here's the evolutionary why underneath this entire video. Darkness has never been neutral. For nearly every predator-prey relationship on Earth, night is when the odds shift dramatically in the predator's favor. Reduced visibility means reduced warning time, and reduced warning time means the difference between escaping and becoming dinner. This isn't a human quirk. It's a pattern that shows up across the entire animal kingdom, wherever prey species have evolved alongside nocturnal hunters. Humans, for the vast majority of our evolutionary history, were very much prey. Early hominins living on the African savanna shared their landscape with lions, leopards, and hyenas, all of which are more effective hunters after sunset than during the day. Fear of the dark, in this light, isn't a psychological flaw. It's a warning system, correctly calibrated to a genuinely dangerous statistical reality. The problem is that this warning system had to run on remarkably bad hardware. Human eyes, compared to the animals hunting us, were simply not built for the shift that happens the moment the sun goes down. This is established science, stated plainly. Human night vision is genuinely poor compared to most nocturnal predators. Our eyes rely heavily on cone cells, which handle color and detail in bright light, but essentially shut down in darkness, leaving us dependent on a much smaller population of rod cells that deliver blurry, colorless, low-resolution vision at best. Cats, owls, and many nocturnal predators, by contrast, have eyes packed with far higher rod density and a reflective layer called the tapetum lucidum that bounces light back through the retina for a second pass, which is also why their eyes seem to glow in torchlight. Humans got none of that. In practical terms, a human standing in moonlit grassland could detect movement, maybe, but couldn't reliably identify what that movement was, predator, prey, or nothing at all, until it was dangerously close. This is the gritty detail nobody romanticizes about prehistoric life. Night wasn't just uncomfortable, it was a sustained, multi-hour window of genuine sensory blindness, every single day for your entire life. So if your eyes can't tell you what's out there, what does? Here's the cross-species lens, and it's not subtle. Lions, one of the primary predators sharing early human landscapes, show measurably higher hunting success rates at night than during daylight hours. Their own night vision and low-light hunting adaptations give them a decisive edge exactly when human vision is at its worst. Hyenas hunt cooperatively after dark, using scent and hearing far more than sight, which meant human sensory strategies, built heavily around vision, offered comparatively little protection once the sun went down. This wasn't an occasional threat. This was a nightly, recurring, statistically real danger zone that repeated itself for hundreds of thousands of years, every single night, for every generation of ancestor you have. Reindeer doing drug recycling in Siberia, respect. But a hyena that's basically running full stealth mode while you're functionally half-blind? That's not a fair fight, and evolution knew it. The fear response that developed here wasn't paranoia. It was an accurate read on an environment that was, quite literally, more dangerous after dark. But predators weren't the only reason darkness earned its reputation. Here's the multi-causal reveal, and it's a big one. Because darkness wasn't dangerous for just one reason, it was dangerous for at least three independent compounding reasons stacking on top of each other. First, predator vulnerability, which we've covered. Second, physical injury risk. Uneven terrain, cliff edges, and thorny vegetation become dramatically more hazardous when you can't see them, and a broken leg in a pre-medical world was frequently a death sentence on its own. No predator required. Third, and this one's easy to overlook, social separation. Early humans survived through group cohesion. Wandering off from the group at night, whether through disorientation or simply losing sight of others in the dark, meant losing the protection, resources, and support that group provided. Three completely separate survival threats: predation, injury, and isolation, all converging on the same conclusion: stay put, stay alert, stay afraid, until the sun comes back. That's not one instinct, that's three independent evolutionary pressures reinforcing each other, which is exactly why this fear turned out to be so deeply, stubbornly persistent. But here's where the story gets genuinely surprising. For a long time, the assumption was that fear of the dark must be hardwired from birth, an automatic reflex baked directly into the human nervous system. No learning required, the same way infants instinctively flinch from a sudden loss of support. Recent developmental research has significantly complicated that assumption. Studies tracking fear development in infants and young children have found that fear of darkness typically doesn't appear until somewhere around age 2 to 4, emerging alongside developing imagination and the cognitive ability to conceive of unseen threats, not present from birth the way some other fear responses appear to be. This is Tier 2 territory, a reasonable, well-supported area of active research, not a fully settled certainty, since disentangling innate versus learned fear responses in very young children is notoriously difficult. But the pattern is consistent enough that researchers no longer treat fear of the dark as a simple automatic reflex. It looks more like a fear that gets rapidly and reliably learned, built on top of a nervous system already primed by millennia of genuinely dangerous nights, reinforced constantly by real parental warnings, real stories, and real consequences passed down through direct experience. So, if the fear itself was being taught and reinforced generation after generation, how did ancient humans actually push back against the dark? Some of the earliest confirmed evidence of controlled fire use comes from Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, with burned bone and plant ash dated to roughly 1 million years ago, one of the clearest signals that early hominins were actively engineering a defense against the dark rather than simply enduring it. Fire didn't just provide light, it extended the usable day, deterred predators, and functionally pushed back the boundary of what darkness could threaten. And yet, strangely, some ancient humans didn't just push darkness away, they walked straight into it, deliberately. Deep inside Chauvet Cave in France, painted roughly 36,000 years ago, elaborate artwork sits in chambers accessible only by traveling hundreds of meters through total absolute blackness, far beyond any natural light source. This wasn't accidental. Reaching those chambers required carrying fire deliberately into the one place evolution had spent countless generations teaching humans to avoid. Researchers propose that this reflects the use of darkness itself as a ritual or transformative space. Genuinely fascinating, but firmly Tier 3 territory, since we cannot directly know the intent behind marks made tens of thousands of years ago. What we can say is this: darkness wasn't only the enemy. For some ancient humans, it became something closer to sacred ground. Here's the obvious pushback. Doesn't fear of the dark, especially the supernatural version, monsters, spirits, demons in the shadows, belong more to religion and superstition than to evolutionary biology? Partially true, and worth separating carefully. Established science, the underlying behavioral avoidance of darkness, the elevated stress response, the heightened vigilance, that's well documented, measurable, and consistent with real historical predation pressure. What's genuinely speculative is why human cultures across the world independently layered supernatural narratives, monsters, evil spirits, restless dead, onto that underlying fear, rather than simply reasoning predators exist at night, stay inside. One reasonable proposal, and this isn't a fringe theory, is that supernatural explanations may have functioned as a more emotionally persuasive, more memorable way to enforce genuinely useful survival behavior across a whole community, especially for children too young to grasp abstract statistical risk. But whether that's the actual origin or simply one contributing thread among many cultural forces, the honest answer is we don't know for certain, and we probably never will with full precision. What we can say confidently is that the fear predates the folklore. The folklore grew up around something that was already true. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Nyctophobia, Clinical fear of the dark remains one of the most commonly reported fears across both children and adults today, in a world where the overwhelming majority of us will never encounter a nocturnal predator in our entire lives. The nightlight industry alone is a multi-hundred-million-dollar global market, built almost entirely around soothing a threat response evolved for a world of lions and hyenas, not bedrooms and hallways. Modern humans sleep behind locked doors, in climate-controlled homes, often within reach of a phone flashlight. And the fear response still fires, right on schedule, the moment the lights go out. That's not a malfunction. That's an ancient alarm system doing exactly what it was built to do, running on a threat that mostly disappeared generations ago. 10,000 generations of genuinely earned caution don't simply switch off because the world changed faster than our biology could keep up. Here's the thing you can't unsee now. That flicker of unease when you're the last one awake, walking through a dark house, isn't weakness, and it isn't irrational. It's inherited memory, running silently in the background, installed by ancestors who paid for every mistake with their lives. You are, right now, carrying forward a warning system built across hundreds of thousands of nights spent listening for movement in grass you couldn't see. Every time you reach for a light switch without even thinking about it, you're performing an act your ancestors would have killed for. Literal, immediate safety from the thing that hunted them for nearly the entire span of human existence. We didn't just fear the dark. We were shaped, down to the wiring, by generation after generation of getting that fear exactly right.